Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
Listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
As you stated, Bartlett, the unusual position of Billy's legs.
I do have that noted. Joe Giammatteo.
Nobody gets up from the pedigree. Right, guys?
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. But first, just a quick reminder to our listeners out there that after the end of this episode, we are going to have one episode left in 1996, and then our year in review, match of the year, candidates will be discussed. It will be a good damn time. So once we get done talking about the matches in this episode, I'll forgive any of you that want to just skip to that year in review to talk about good matches. But if you want to stick around, that's fine too. More power to you. I've heard that there have been some people over in Eastern Europe marathoning the podcast here. Is that right, Ryan? You told me that somebody was really cranking through them.
Yeah. Germany and Sweden. So The guy from Sweden, I believe, just got caught up in the last few days. So he'll be listening to the next one live.
That's what it was. The cold weather must have came early to Sweden. We've delayed it long enough. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on December 23rd, 1996. This Raw was recorded at the Ice Palace in the World of Shit, Tampa, Florida, and features Vince McMahon and Jim Ross on commentary. Jerry Lawler, oh so briefly. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. We kick this episode off with Sable's theme music 3 seconds in. Marc Mero coming out to it in our first match of the night. Hunter Hearst Helmsley defeats Marc Mero by pinfall in 9 minutes and 48 seconds to retain the WWF Intercontinental Championship. And I have to admit, as soon as I heard Sable's music playing, Joe, you were the first person I thought of. You've said it quite a few times, can we get a Monday without Mero? It's becoming Mero Mondays around here, and this is par for the course.
Yeah, you hear that, the crack of the whip there and the wild cat growl, yeah.
Here he comes.
We were just talking off air about how there's a good chance we might not have made it past that opening salvo of sound to kick off this episode. The channel might have got changed. Oh, in my notes here, Mero is whatever. You know, he's Mero, but the smaller changes of Hunter within this tired gimmick of his, it's taken Hunter up a notch. He's got the music change up that they debuted at the pay-per-view. He's almost coming out like Ric Flair here. He's got his robe on, but it's open to show off the belt instead of all prim and tied properly. He's smirking instead of snarling. He's making grand but smooth gestures with his arms and hands. It's like they freshened up the gimmick and made it more Hunter, less Blue Blood. And I like how he's doing it and where it's taking him. I loved how Hunter gestured at Mero to shoo him off to the side so Hunter could pose for the hard camera, and Mero actually moved out of the way for it. Then we found out that Goldust was going to be in attendance with Marlena. He gets his music played, but Goldust and Marlena will be out in the crowd to enjoy the match in what looked like the first tiered section coming up from the floor. That poor usher was screaming at people to get out of the way so that they could get in there and sit down. That was a nice distraction for everyone, though, as the babyface Marc Mero jumps Hunter from behind to kick things off. The bell gets rung, and when I paused to note the time, I was able to see that nobody was watching the action in the ring. Everybody was looking back and up at Goldust and Marlena. It tells you something about what's happening there in the ring. Once again, the punches from Mero are the only thing that look decent, and it still gives me a little bit of hope for when he eventually transitions into his Golden Gloves boxer gimmick. Maybe that will be a little better, hopefully. Things quickly fell apart from there, though. Mero attempted to get his shit in, that being arm drag through the ropes to the outside, but Hunter worked the moves in a completely unexpected way. By that, I mean Mero was performing like an arm drag takedown, for example, but Hunter wasn't selling an arm drag takedown. He was selling hip tosses. You could see Mero's confusion in where to go and what to do because Hunter wasn't ending up in the usual spots for Mero to continue to get his shit in. It gave it a very disjointed, awkward look, but man, Hunter was staying in time with everything, so it didn't look bad necessarily. Well, it didn't look bad for Hunter. It looked kind of bad for Mero.
Maybe that was the point.
The downhill slide continued once Hunter was out of the ring. Mero didn't go for his tope suicida. Mero went after Jerry Lawler instead. I had no idea why. Mero actually chased Lawler out of the ring area completely. He was on commentary up to this point, and this is why I mentioned in our intro that he was only briefly on commentary. He only made it about 4 minutes into this episode. Hunter picked up a chair to hit Mero, but then dropped it after looking at Vince. Vince was saying something along the lines of Mero will get the disqualification win, and Hunter looked at him and put the chair down. Kind of weird. Weird for a heel to listen, but I mean, it makes sense. You know, he doesn't want to give Mero the victory. Up in the ring, in the corner, Mero and Hunter weren't communicating very well, so there were a couple moments of awkward timing and confusion again there. Thankfully, the most entertaining part of this match was the hard camera angles that included Goldust and Marlena up in the crowd. They had kept a golden spotlight on them to highlight them there in the crowd, and man, it worked. It was just like some fabulous golden gargoyle perched up there observing the match. JR gave us the news that the Honky Tonk Man was scheduled to show up tonight. Once again, boy. Joe, thought of you. Thought of you and Rockabilly. We also got the news that later on, Bret Hart will be taking on Fake Razor. Woot woot. Helmsley won with a pedigree and then got on the mic to yell up at Goldust about Marlena getting to be with a real man, prompting Goldust to rip off his wig and march down to the ring. Hunter gets out in time, and there is not a physical altercation between the two. This gets capped with JR noting that Goldust is beginning to get over with the fans, and I have to agree with that. The people were behind Goldust here. And that's pretty much it for my notes. This episode did continue. I mean, it's just, you know, what can you say? This was a Marc Mero match. Even Hunter couldn't bring this past a certain level. Honestly, it kind of looked like Hunter was fucking with Mero a bit in it, so that would take things down a little as far as actual match quality goes. But again, just Marc Mero, what more can you say? It didn't do anything for me. It didn't get anyone over. Didn't do anything for anybody. Ryan, what did you think of it?
At the beginning here, we have Goldust and Marlena coming down through the crowd with the gold spotlight, like you pointed out. And I couldn't help but think about Ahmed Johnson weeks ago coming in in the dark, up in the nosebleeds, you know. And here, it looks like they learned their lesson. Here, they actually have some decent seats. They have the giant spotlight on them, so it would make sense that Vince was able to spot them from a mile away. So that's all I could think about.
They learned their lesson.
To make it a little bit more realistic. They didn't, however, learn their lesson about Marc Mero. They just keep putting him in IC belt title matches after IC belt title matches. At times, Hunter looked okay in this match, but there were things even he was doing, like you said, where some moves that just weren't timing up perfectly. I did like Hunter's delayed vertical suplex that he gave. I thought that was a really nice touch. That looked good. They go to the split screen a few times showing Goldust up here, and that I guess is what this match was about, was just getting Goldust over and definitely showing off some huge babyface tones at this point. Coming in through the crowd, that's a giant babyface move, so they're definitely trying to push him over as a babyface now, so that's pretty interesting based on what they brought him in for and how they were trying to portray him up until now. So that's the most interesting part of this match. Thankfully, Helmsley gets a clean victory here. He capitalizes on a missed move from Mero and lands the pedigree, which nobody, of course, can kick out of, Joe, as you stated.
Absolutely nobody.
Nobody. So I was happy to see Hunter get the victory here, and a decisive victory. Enough so that I was tempted to give Mark Jobber the week. But I think we all know what Raw I'm saving that for.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. We start with Sable's music. I'm maybe checking to see what she's wearing, and then I'm going to change the channel, I guess. That's where I sit with that. Goldust in the crowd, though, that's a nice touch. As far as the match itself, the Wild Man is moving 1,000 miles an hour. He has no concept of pace whatsoever.
Or wrestling.
Or wrestling.
Charisma, or...
Yeah, and it sucks because Hunter Hearst Helmsley is an old school guy who does understand pace. You have to think these guys probably hated working with the Wild Man during this time.
I mean, we heard how many guys refused to work with him at times,
yeah.
right? Even
Right.
poor Mick Foley.
Right. Like, yeah, of all people, Mick Foley doesn't want to work with you.
Not just not work with you. Asked, has anyone turned down WrestleMania?
Yeah. I'd rather make $0 that night. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this was not a great match, but Ryan, I agree. It's nice to see Hunter get the clean win with his finish right in the middle of the ring. That was the good part of this. And then Hunter cuts that Clubber Lang promo on...
Come on with a real man.
Yeah, come be with a real man, which was pretty cool. But yeah, those two things were the only two good things, I think.
Joe, maybe you can help me out with this. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember what it's called, but it's that thought or idea in economics where once you've put enough money into something, you refuse to acknowledge that you
Sunk
failed
cost.
to move on. Sunk cost?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's the sunk cost.
I think that's what you're going for, yeah.
So is it safe to say that Mero is maybe a sunk cost at this point? I mean, they're getting what they can out of Sable moving forward, but like they just refuse to
cannot be
acknowledge.
recovered. He can't be recovered.
They refuse to acknowledge that they have failed with this financial endeavor that is Marc Mero. The guaranteed contract, keep in mind.
Yes, you are correct. And that's an investment that cannot be recovered, but they do have Sable, and we know what they're going to do with her later. So
That was my next question, Joe. Is there an accounting term for when you would acquire an asset because you want another asset that maybe is in connection?
I think what that is it's called bionic tits. You get those. You get those. And then you're just
You're golden.
the money's gonna come rolling in.
Yeah, you're good to go.
It's like wanting to buy WCW for the catalog, not for Glacier.
Right.
Oh,
The IP to Glacier. You want the video catalog, but you're not necessarily looking to put Glacier in the ring. Let's go back to happier times. Last week when Billy Gunn broke his own neck selling a stun gun, Vince gives us the prognosis of partial temporary paralysis, putting Billy as a paraplegic rather than the quadriplegic, which is what I predicted. So I'll say I'm halfway right. We got 2 out of the 4 limbs paralyzed here. We got a replay of the phone call from Bart Gunn on Superstars. It was what it was. It's the damnedest thing, you know. I was trying to think of a clever way to say that Bart wasn't charismatic during the phone call, but then again, who is ever charismatic during a phone call-in? This was like double suicide for them.
Right.
And that ends as we're getting Sonny's music. Sonny coming down the
I know you
entryway
want me. Right during the apology, too.
Yeah.
Right during the apology where we forget Sonny existed.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I still can't get over that. Just the sole driving factor of the entire fucking division for months, and we're gonna pretend like it never happened.
And then the audacity to lead in right to her after talking about Billy and his wife's concern.
Cutting off the apology.
And then right to Sonny walking down with no mention of anything of her tie-in.
That's kind of like cutting off Bret Hart's promo with Shawn Michaels' music.
Oh, yeah.
We can maybe forgive her this time because she was wearing a tight red dress and a Santa hat. She looked
Merry
pretty
Christmas.
darn good in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Better than Santa Claus. That's for
Oh,
sure.
yes.
Well, I don't know about that. She flirted with Vince. JR got disgusted. And we get that quick look at the WWF carolers. This time they were singing Psycho Sid is Coming to Town to the tune of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I mean, you know, cute lyrics. It was kind of clever in spots, but it was a fucking Christmas song parody, so I'm not even gonna get into it. You guys can if you want to, but that's not my bag, baby. After that, we come back to the entrance in progress, so I'm gonna pause here to ask, Ryan, we already know that you're a fan of the WWF carolers. You were gushing over them the last time they were on our screens. But what did you think about them, but also the news that Billy Gunn is now a paraplegic?
Well, as I stated, the unusual position of his legs, of course, he's paralyzed. I already gave my thoughts on the hilarity of playing this up and then leading right into Sunny after we forget about her. And to answer your first question, I still love the Christmas Carol replacement commercial thing here. I still like it.
You listen to those songs all day, every day.
Yeah.
Gushing.
Especially around
Preparing.
Christmas time.
You can't wait till Christmas. You're
right.
listening to them now.
Falls asleep to them every night.
We have temporary paralysis. I don't know. We're faking a man getting paralyzed on TV when it does happen in other sports. Like you could be watching a football game and someone is actually paralyzed, but we are going to fake that on a wrestling program, which is crazy to me. We're supposed to believe it too, you know? Like that's the worst part of it. Yeah, the Bart apology getting cut off with Sonny's cheesy ass music is pretty funny. She's going to join commentary in her Christmas dress, and I guess we will discuss that a little bit here.
I don't know. Something about the whole Billy Gunn thing just... So, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is December of 96. This is the first time since Marty Jannetty that somebody had their neck broke in the ring, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, but that was real.
Well, yeah, but this is real. What are you talking about? We don't know if he's going to walk again, Joe. We don't know if he's going to go on to be in a fantastic tag team. We don't know any of that.
Okay.
You saw the positioning of his legs. And the medical term for that is akimbo. His legs were akimbo, so that must mean he's got partial temporary paralysis.
I know you want me.
Well, time to ease the tension. Here's Sonny. All right. Well, Sonny's going to be drooling on commentary for our next match. Rocky Maivia defeats Sal Sincere by pinfall in 5 minutes and 47 seconds. Ryan, Sal Sincere, he was a jobber of the week once, wasn't he?
He was. About a month ago, Salvador Sincere was our jobber of the week for the November 25th, 1996 episode.
Excellent. Anybody that is interested in the history of Sal Sincere, please go back and take a look at it. Jim Cornette was in the ring with Sal Sincere here. No mention of why at first, although JR does mention that Cornette was trying to sign Rocky Maivia to his stable, which doesn't make sense in this scenario at all. We got entrances for no one here, by the way, but we did get the news that Shotgun Saturday Night is going to be debuting January 4th. That's not really a big deal in hindsight, but at the time, that was a little crazy, you know, live late night Saturday wrestling from the brand that liked to talk about making it raw and doing it raw and all of these things with women with gigantic tits. Having this late night Saturday night program is certainly inspiring a lot of people to tune in to think that maybe it's going to be a good lead into Silk Stockings. We got plenty, or maybe La Femme Nikita. We got plenty of split screen with Sonny in this match, which is just as well because Sal Sincere isn't the right person to lead a green Rocky Maivia through a match. And a whole lot of time passed, not because this match was good and absorbing like usual, but because it was boring and there was nothing at all of note going on. And that's surprising to me, considering that this is Rocky Maivia. You know, I'm not expecting him to be a miracle worker, as he is, as I said, still very green, still very young and new to the business. But the couple times that we've seen him so far, he's he's been electrifying. There's no doubt about it.
He's had energy. At least.
But still, that didn't help in this case. There were some minor miscommunications during this match. Nothing that really jumps out as a major botch. It was just kind of boring. Rocky ended up getting the shoulder breaker for the win, the pin, and the 3 count. That's pretty much it. There was a light crowd chant for Rocky, but otherwise this match came and went and life goes on, man. Joe, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't very exciting. And Sal Sincere is now managed by Jim Cornette, I guess. That was a surprise. Speaking of managers, they keep talking to Sunny like she's a manager, but who the hell is she managing right now?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, right?
Nope.
Certainly not the Guns.
No.
So, I mean, she certainly has interest in Rocky Maivia right now, but yeah, I don't think she's managing anyone. So who knows what's going to happen there. A lot of reason why this was boring to me was probably because Sal Sincere is just looking so stiff and reckless here, and maybe Rocky was trying to be a little bit more cautious. He did have his lip busted open there during this match.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there was just a little bit more caution being used by Rocky. I don't know, but I agree it was pretty boring for the most part. Rocky's shoulder breaker is a really good looking move. But it's not exactly a great finisher, so we obviously know he's not going to continue using that, but it is a really good-looking move, and not too many other guys use it, so I do like seeing that.
Yeah, kind of the same as both of you. There's not a whole ton to talk about in this match because it was a pretty boring match, really. Probably the most boring match that we've seen Rocky Maivia in since he's been here. Bartlett, as you kind of said, he's in his other matches at least brought, some level of energy to it that at least made you feel somewhat involved in the match that was missing here. I heard the Rocky chants, and they were faint enough that I wasn't sure if we were hearing the beginnings of Die, Rocky, Die, and we just weren't hearing the die part, but I don't think that's the case. I think they were just actually chanting Rocky here.
Yeah, it was the kids in the crowd, because whenever they went to commentary afterwards, you could see 1 or 2 kids behind Vince chanting for Rocky.
At this point, I think they're just accepting that they're being told he's a babyface, so the kids are cheering for him. Unfortunately, Sal wasn't really earning his Jobber of the Week paycheck this week. He didn't look too great in there with Rocky, and that's a bit of a shame, but that's what you get every once in a while. But mostly the match was to focus on Sonny's sexual innuendos. That's really what this was all about. We keep on going split screen to her so she could make butterfly eyes at Vince and the camera and say sexual things about Rocky, and that was the point of this. Joe, I agree. I do enjoy the shoulder breaker. I don't know if it is necessarily enough as a finisher, but as a move, it's a unique move that I do enjoy seeing. So yeah, sadly, a kind of a miss here for Rocky, but that's going to happen in his early days, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys pointed out the shoulder breaker finisher here a little more than I did. I'm just kind of taking it for granted that we aren't going to have to put up with it for very long. I shouldn't say put up with it like it's a huge negative. It's a decent move, and it looks great with Rocky doing it, but Joe, as you said, just not as a finisher. I keep coming back to those matches whenever The Rock was in his prime in the late 90s, and he would be going up against somebody like The Big Show, and he would hit The Big Show with the rock bottom, and he would make it look fantastic, and the whole ring would just bump along with it because The Big Show is 500 fucking pounds, But then watching this, I'm thinking to myself, there's no way in hell that Rocky at his prime could have put The Big Show into a shoulder breaker. I don't think. I mean, maybe there's some kind of way to work it to make it happen, but I don't think they could have done that. All right, well, let's move it along here. George and Adam, those guys, those 2 fans. George and Adam were standing in a hallway in San Antonio talking about the competitors. They ended up in a men's room. That was this week's adventure of George and Adam. Thankfully, that didn't last long. We got back to the ring with Vince McMahon for an interview with Psycho Sid. Sid came out. Sid loved it. The crowd loved it. Me, not quite so much this time.
The music guy loved it?
Oh my God. I'm getting there. Well, so what I don't like about Sid Sid, this entrance at least, because it varies with Sid. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But I don't like it whenever he's being nothing but serious. I prefer a little bit of, forced, insane laughter whenever it comes to Sid. I like that sprinkled heavily throughout the presentation. Sid's pyro continues to look badass, though. We ended up getting a pretty good view of Shawn Michaels backstage watching this interview with the Sid pyro there on his little screen. And here's where I noted that they wouldn't shut the fucking music off as Vince was talking and leading Sid through the interview. It was extremely distracting to the point where I couldn't understand half of what Sid was saying. Because, he goes back and forth between yelling things and then whispering and giggling and doing his Sid thing, which is all fine. But whenever it got to the quieter parts of his promo, I couldn't hear it. I couldn't understand it. And it kind of pissed me off because it sounded like Sid had some new material mixed in there with his usual master and ruler lines, and I'm kind of upset that I didn't get to hear those. We left there to go to an official clip for Shotgun Saturday Night's premiere, and then came back to the next match getting started. But before we talk about that, Joe, are you able to give us a little more about Sid and his promo here than what I was able to catch with that fucking music repeating over and over?
No, the interview ended up being a complete waste of time, I think. Just a complete filler time killer here because, he's just talking a bunch of nonsense and the music's playing the whole time. And then he goes into his madman whisper that he does, and you definitely can't hear a word he's saying then. The music never stopped. Like, I was waiting for the music to stop, and it did not.
Yeah, I wish I could help out and tell you anything that Sid said, but all I heard was his music. And, the moment I thought it was going to stop at one point. Yeah. But no, it was just looping. It was just starting over again. And I don't know what Sid said. All I know is Sid's music.
Read. All right, let's move it now to our next match. Cibernetico and Pierrot. I think I pronounced those correctly. I probably butchered them. Pierrot defeated the New Rockers by pinfall in 3 minutes and 55 seconds. These are the two guys that came out for no good reason at the In Your House pay-per-view. It's time.
They had no business being there.
No business whatsoever. Pierrot was the one that I was mishearing them, and I heard it a couple times too here. Like, if it wasn't for me looking at the match card to see the correct spelling and what I assume is the correct pronunciation, it really sounded like they were calling him Geralt half the time, as in Geralt of Rivia, but this, like, Pierrot, I don't fucking know. Cibernetico is the other one. We'll just maybe focus on him. This was par for the course for the evening at the start of this. It was obvious that there wasn't clear communication, which I'm not really judging that. It's not surprising given the circumstances here. It's just everything seemed one step off. What are you going to do? These guys aren't generally constantly working with Marty fucking Jannetty and Leif Cassidy. I loved JR pointing out that nobody really likes either of these teams in their respective fandoms. So thank you, JR, for keeping it real. Both of these luchadors, along with Mil Moscaris, will be participating in the Royal Rumble, which makes me less enthusiastic for the Royal Rumble as a result. And then the match was over. Geralt got the pin. We got a view of the New Rockers shoving each other as if there might be trouble in paradise between the two.
Oh, no. Someone's going to get paralyzed.
JR goes to interview Mil Moscaris right after this, and it literally looks like they were trying to fit it in during post-match exits rather than give it its own time. It was funny. I was laughing pretty hard at this because they had to squeak some time in with him without taking time away from anything else. Mil Moscaris doesn't really answer any of JR's questions. As a matter of fact, he looked confused throughout most of it. And at the end, Vince quipped another award-winning interview from JR. In my humble opinion, we were 3 for 3 so far on throwaway matches for this episode. Ryan, what did you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I was glad that we at least got something out of this AAA walk-in that we had from these guys at the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, this match really showed how little these two teams have been able to work together because they just were not clicking. Right out of the start, Perot tries to leapfrog Cassidy, but instead Leaf ends up like running his head right into Perot's balls. So, and that awkwardness continued through this whole match. It just, nothing really looked smooth. And you could tell that, both teams had decent wrestlers. They just weren't able to fire on the same cylinders with each other here. And it didn't lead to a very good looking match. And it ended pretty quick, too, and uneventful. It was just kind of over. We got the disagreement between Marty and Leaf. I guess maybe they might be breaking up, and I know that's something we all care about here desperately.
So these AAA guys are here, and we know that there is a collaboration through the fucking dirt sheets, but nobody on Raw is telling us why these guys are here, really. So that's a problem. They should explain why they are there and, talk about the collaboration with AAA when they're going to have the Royal Rumble, because it's still like 3 weeks away or something like that. So why not just say what it is and why they are there? It's just so strange. The biggest problem that I have with the match is I think that for me, the bar is set a little bit too high for AAA guys because, I'm watching Rey Mysterio Jr., I'm watching Hoovy, Conan, Psychosis over on WCW. So that's what I expect out of AAA talent. But these guys were nowhere near that level.
And JR even kind of told us, he was like, well, a lot of people think that luchadores all are high flyers, but that's not the case. Like these two, they're not. And it was like, oh yeah, we could tell.
Yeah. So I was expecting to see, some of that stuff we see in WCW with some of the cruiser weights and the other guys, like I said, Conan, some of those guys. But yeah, these guys are just slow. Perot he just looks, I don't know how old he is, but he just looks like a washed up wrestler. So
late 40s is what they said, because I remember JR highlighting his age and maturity and wisdom in the ring with Cybernetico's early 20s youth and energy.
I was apparently not paying attention to JR at all during this. Fuck. He laid it all out there for me and I missed it. Yeah, this sucked.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it did. But you know what, Joe? You bring up a really good point. And this is something that I have virtually no knowledge of outside of the names that you mentioned there in WCW. But didn't I see in the Monday Night Wars series on the cock there, Bischoff was talking about whenever they started the cruiserweights and started bringing in the luchadors, and weren't they actively just poaching all of the top talent they could from everywhere they could? They had was it Jushin Liger there? They had a couple Japanese guys, but like really really good Japanese guys in that mix, right?
Yeah, some of them, like Jushin Liger, he was like a hired gun kind of thing. Like he wasn't like a permanent guy on the roster, but a lot of those guys at this point, all of those guys are permanent WCW guys, like Rey, Mysterio, Conan, Psychosis. They're all there, like right now, December 96.
Because I remember I wasn't so much into Conan, but I was a huge fan of Psychosis back then. Juventud, and it's funny that you bring that up because you saying that made me think, oh yeah, because WCW were poaching all of the top talent, so Cybernetico and Geralt of Rivia is what we have left.
Bottom of the barrel.
That's who Eric didn't want.
I don't want leftovers. I'm going to switch over to TNT.
One guy that's too old and one guy that's too young, right?
And neither one of them high flyers.
All right. Let's go now to a Royal Rumble update. I was hoping to get some exciting news here, but we got just kind of lukewarm stuff. More entrants were announced, those being Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Flash Funk, the British Bulldog, Ahmed Johnson, and The Undertaker. The Undertaker. This is kind of a surprise to me, because he's been in an event at the Royal Rumble pay-per-views he hasn't been a Rumble entrant since we've started this podcast, has he? He's had his own match in the top of the card.
Yeah, I don't know. I know he had the casket match with Yoko.
Yeah, with Yoko. Yeah, maybe not.
And maybe he was out for injury or something. You know, another one it's kind of we never see in Rumbles very much is Bret Hart.
Yeah. Well, somebody that we saw in plenty of Rumbles was the Honky Tonk Man.
Oh, boy.
The Honky Tonk Man came down the entryway with no preamble at all. The greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. And I have to keep it real here. Honky was looking great. He still looked to be in decent shape, and he looked almost as good as he did when he was at the top of the card 10 fucking years ago.
He still looked like the Honky Tonk Man, yeah.
I mean, for all things considered, he looked pretty damn good, and he sounded good on the mic, too.
The difference is he was kind of entering a time where no one gave a shit about Elvis anymore.
Yeah. Well, we broke to commercial and came back to an entrance in progress, so we'll pause here. Ryan, do you have any additional input on the announced Royal Rumble entrance or the Honky Tonk Man showing up to give commentary on a Bret Hart fake razor match of all fucking things?
No. I don't. There was nothing spectacular about those entries into the Royal Rumble, and I mean, we were warned the Honky Tonk Man was going to be here, and they made good on that promise.
Yeah, the Royal Rumble preview, usually, I feel like the past couple years, they took the approach to kind of give us some surprises.
Dickie Murdoch.
Be there. Yeah, like Vader, the one time, like Jake the Snake, you know, like all these guys that like came back, they told us we're going to be there, but they didn't do that this time. I mean, they're still a few weeks away, so maybe we'll get a couple surprises, but who knows? Honky Tonk Man comes out and JR says, "We knew he was going to be here. Did we know? Did they like?"
Yeah, the first match, someone brought it up.
Yeah.
Oh, like earlier today.
Yeah. But you mean, but before this, not that I remember.
Yeah, I don't
outside
remember
of you and your news saying that the Honky Tonk Man was going to return. Double warning.
It's just bringing a guy back in from the past who has not changed his gimmick, his look, or anything since the last time we saw him. So it's almost like the Warrior coming back.
Yeah.
Pretty much doing the same shit that he did. The same tassels.
I wonder if the Honky Tonk Man will stay down for the pedigree.
Nobody gets up from the pedigree.
But he's a Honky Tonk Man. He's a Honky Tonk Man. I have to admit, I was a little happy to see Honky. I always liked the Honky Tonk Man. I'm not going to be defending him or anything, but I'm just saying it was...
You already have. You're already getting a Honky Tonk Man...
guitar.
Ring gear, actually. But ring-worn gear for Christmas.
Oh my God.
Unwashed.
They're giving it away for free. They can't even charge money for it. I would frame that in a shadow box and hang it on my wall. My wife would hate me. Well, you know, half of this match sounds good. Let's go to our final match of the night. Bret Hart.
Stop.
Yeah.
This is a Bret Hart match. Let's move on.
Defeats Fake Razor by submission in 6 minutes and 9 seconds. Fake Razor is still getting a ton of pyro. Like, that shit costs money. and they're doing that with him. Like,
they got to take the water cooler. They took the water coolers out.
Another sunk cost, I guess. I don't know. You would think that at some point that they would back off of this and pretend like it never happened. But
and bring the water coolers back. Yeah.
Bret Hart still getting a crowd pop, even though he's going to be in the ring with Fake Razor. You can tell he's less than enthusiastic about it. I have a strong suspicion that Bret might be slowly turning heel because he gave his sunglasses not to a happy, innocent-looking kid, but to a kid that already had a ton of Hitman merch on. Like, he usually gives it to a kid that looks like they might be, like, having, like, a Make-A-Wish moment or, I don't know, something to make it the best possible visual. But this kid was just head-to-toe Hitman merch.
Well, I mean, that's a good choice. You know, how much of that merch percentage goes in the Hitman's pocket? He should have gave something back to that kid.
That's true, yeah.
Not nearly enough to make him go through with this match, but he did it anyway. He's a professional. The Honky Tonk Man officially announces here that he's talent scouting. So he's there to evaluate whether Fake Razor might want to be in his stable or Bret Hart, right? Because Bret Hart is going to let Honky Tonk Man be his fucking manager. This was done in a split screen. It's just as well because Fake Razor couldn't keep up with Bret Hart. There were a few spots where you could see the Hitman chomping at the bit to have a bigger match than what had been booked. Honky thinks that Stone Cold's almost to the point of being Honky level talent. Fake Razor was trying to imitate real Razor in the ring, and it was fucking pathetic. And so was Honky trying to talk about current events. We got a split screen of Vince trying to talk intelligently with Honky about the current championship scene, with Vince smirking at Honky's nonsense and confusion in his answer because he doesn't know what the fuck is going on. Back in the match, both competitors were at the outside and Fake Razor pussyfooted into the whip against the ring stairs. What a pussy.
Twice.
Twice.
Fucking curd dog it into the fucking stairs.
We broke to commercial on what could have been the third count out if anybody had been counting this, and came back to Bret Hart applying the sharpshooter and Fake Razor lasting a moment longer than I would have predicted before submitting. Like, seriously, we came back from commercial straight to the submission. They were in the middle of the ring, and Honky Tonk could have sworn Fake Razor had his hand on a rope. Middle of the ring. Shawn Michaels was backstage watching, so we cut to him for a brief interview. Shawn was just very, very childish and insulting here, like always. For example, when asked what he thinks about Bret's victory, Shawn says, "What, you're asking me like I didn't think it was going to happen?" Which is a great answer on a lot of levels. Besides that, he was giving just very short, brusque answers. Yeah, okay, things like that. Shawn had a significant amount of don't give a shit in his eyes doing this. Shawn was addressing Vince McMahon's stupidity with stupidity before going on.
I mean, they are stupid fucking questions, too. Like,
They are. Yeah. He goes on to cut an actual promo on Bret and Sid and the championship scene, and that was pretty good. It was short, but it was good, and I feel like that's the correct combination for Shawn Michaels promos. We want him drugged up a little bit, not too much. We want to keep them short, and we want to make sure he's attacking somebody. It felt very real, so better than some of the more recent interviews and promos he's gone through. Joe, this was the last of a card full of mediocre matches tonight, and as a matter of fact, the brief interview with Shawn Michaels was probably the only entertaining part of the evening. What did you think of our last match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
Yeah, I mean, this is how you're ending a show in a war. I mean, that's just sad and pathetic. How many times have we said that over the past couple months? Just too many times. Fake Razor should never, ever be... He shouldn't be on TV, period, but he should never be closing the show. Ever. I mean, it's nice to see Bret Hart, but this is a jobber match that's supposed to be on like Superstars or Live Wire, whatever the hell those shows are, not Monday Night Raw. This is not the live show, so they have opportunities to, rearrange things, but this is what they chose to do. So pretty crazy stuff. The Shawn interview, I mean, he's showing a shitty attitude towards Vince, and he does bring up a couple good points. Like, I like that he says anything can happen in a world championship match, and I don't make excuses. So, he lost to Sid, and he's not making excuses about it. He's getting another shot at the title, and he's going to try to win it. Everything he says makes sense, but the attitude that he's showing is sort of probably part of the reason why fans are starting to boo him.
I cannot believe the level of disrespect thrown at Bret Hart in this match. Not only are you making him wrestle Fake fucking Razor, we start the match off split screen, talking to the Honky Tonk Man as if Hart's match doesn't even fucking matter. Well, I know, but that's what I'm saying. This is Bret fucking Hart. He shouldn't be in a match.
It's the Honky Tonk fucking man there.
Bret fucking Hart should not ever be in a match with fake ass Razor. Could you imagine ourselves back in 96 watching Raw? One, if we even made it this far into this fucking episode. But here we are, and we're like, oh, Bret Hart, this might be good against fake Razor. Change the fucking channel. I mean, does it even matter who was on Nitro when you were talking about fake Razor in a fucking match? Bartlett, you pointed out Razor's just pussy ass fucking stair spot. 2 times in a row, this fucking worthless motherfucker comes to a complete stop before hitting the stairs. Unbelievable. The fact that these are the same stairs that Mankind and Undertaker were throwing themselves into make it even more of a disgrace.
Well, and the guy that he's in the ring with, Bret Hart, fucking slings his body into stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've covered how disgraceful this is for Bret Hart.
Yeah.
At least he gets to put the sharpshooter on Razor, and I think give Razor the first loss that we have seen. So I guess there's a silver lining there, but wow, absolutely amazing that they did this to Bret Hart. The backstage stuff with Michaels, I laughed. I thought it was pretty entertaining just how uninterested and just a dickish quality that he was taking towards Vince. I kind of laughed. And then right before close, he did cut a pretty good promo on Bret, I thought, talking about you're just making excuses and I'm not. All of that was pretty decent, but holy shit, what a fucking terrible match.
You mentioned the disrespect to Bret Hart, but can you imagine the amount of disrespect felt by the Honky Tonk Man?
Ah, jeez.
Having to share a split screen with fake Razor. Greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time.
Speaking of Honky Tonk Man, I wanted to ask you guys, so not knowing the future, we know that Honky Tonk Man is basically saying he's going to be a manager.
Yeah.
So not knowing the future, who do you guys think right away would be that he would be
Jesse
managing?
James.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Jesse James. The only other maybe would be the Godwins since whatchamacallit left.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Certainly not the paraplegic, though.
No.
Absolutely not.
I know we don't know the future here, but there's no reason to believe that Billy Gunn will ever recover.
The unusual position of his legs.
Akimbo. All right. Well, gentlemen, this episode is thankfully over. Let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, please, why don't you go first?
Highlight. None. I think this is a first for me with no highlight. I believe I've had no lowlights on 1 or 2, but 0 highlights. There was just nothing here. Lowlight, the shitting on of Bret Hart by making him share the fucking ring with fake ass fucking Razor. Absolute disgrace.
Okay, well, for me, my highlight is basically the entire show. I mean, you have the Wild Man kicking off the show with a bad match.
The highlight?
No, these are all of my lowlights. I mean, the entire show. Sal Sincere versus Rocky, that match sucked. The Sid interview was terrible. The AAA guys versus New Rockers was fucking horrible. Sadly, my highlight is the announcement of Shotgun Saturday Night. That we are getting
that is live, a highlight.
Yeah, we're getting a live show on Saturday nights. That's the highlight, and that's pretty sad.
I guess, this was Christmas Eve, so they kind of assumed who the fuck's even watching, maybe. I don't know.
True, yeah.
They just assumed that everybody was watching Nitro anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, my highlight is Shawn Michaels not giving a shit at the very end of the episode, and low light was just blanket statement, rest of the show. That's it.
Well, let me just tell you guys, I'm not going to go over the entire card, but you know how this show started, with Sable's music.
Yes.
On Nitro, it started with a WCW United States Heavyweight Championship tournament match, which was Eddie Guerrero against Chris Benoit. So,
Jesus.
If you like wrestling, you're probably watching Nitro.
Equal quality.
That was probably better than 99% of all of the matches of the WWF.
I've heard of Eddie Guerrero, though. Who was that second person?
We'll have to look him up on the WWE website and find out.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find him there.
All right, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around December 23rd, 1996 for us?
Yes, I do. From the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer says that the Piroth and Cibernetico versus Rockers match was a real bad match. He says, I guess people may be picking up that these two are not high flyers. We mentioned the Royal Rumble preview. They mentioned some names. Well, there are some rumors that Terry Funk may be a participant this year. And speaking of the Royal Rumble, it is heavily rumored that Bret Hart will win the Rumble, and we will be getting a Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart rematch at WrestleMania. One of my ECW favorites got a tryout match against Aldo Montoya at a recent Superstars taping, and that was Mike Awesome.
Nice. Love me some Mike Awesome.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think we saw him in WWF.
No, I don't think so.
No.
I thought that was pretty good info there.
But we will see Aldo over at ECW very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of ECW, Dave Meltzer is talking about the WWF selling the Billy Gunn angle as if he's confined in a wheelchair due to neck injuries.
Classless.
Meltzer believes the angle here is Bart being apologetic, but will eventually find out that Billy was faking the injury. Apparently, ECW did a very similar angle between the Sandman and Tommy Dreamer. So it looks like we're maybe stealing some ECW ideas here.
Yeah. I think I vaguely remember that. I think it was the Sandman that had the broken neck. I'm not positive, though.
Speaking of Billy Gunn, the role of his wife on that episode last week was actually a front office employee.
Oh, God.
And not Billy's wife.
Does Billy have a wife
God.
at this point?
I don't know.
Because if he doesn't, I really have to ask the question, why are we completely forgetting about Sonny and shoehorning in a fake wife angle?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we know he has kids that are older that are wrestling now.
Yeah,
so,
now,
I guess
but
you do the math. I guess maybe he was married. Who knows?
We've got to free him up for Honky.
We saw Jim Cornette with Sal Sincere tonight. Dave Meltzer notes that he will not be surprised if we see a breakup between Jim Cornette and Vader soon. The reason for that is, I guess Jim Cornette is now working commentary on the Superstars show, which is live on Sundays, so he is unable to go on tours. So we'll have to see what happens with Jim Cornette here. And Dave Meltzer is also reporting that this is pretty exciting news. Coming in February of 97, there will be a championship belt added.
Yes.
And that will be the European title.
Yeah.
It's being reported that there is a tournament that will be held in Germany for that title. That's the plan right now. We'll see where that goes. But that's exciting stuff. That was an Attitude Era thing, you know, that European title. I mean, it's going to play a role in the screw job and everything. So Pretty exciting.
Who's your favorite European champion of all time?
That's got to be D'Lo Brown.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Old D'Lo shaking the head.
Yep. And that's all this week.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on December 30th, 1996, with matches featuring Savio Vega, Jerry Lawler, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.